Good evening to you friends and fellow speakers at PSA Durban. It's a pleasure to be sharing this evening with you and chatting about my new book, Own Your Industry, How to Position Yourself as an Expert. Here's the cover of the book itself. The first thing you'll notice is that a surprising number of canaries had to lay down their lives to achieve that much yellow. My own personal colour scheme is Lord of the Rings, so that came as a bit of a shock when I first saw it, but I must say it does jump off the shelves. It was published a couple of months ago by Penguin Books, and I'm thrilled to say that a couple of days ago, Penguin let me know that the first run has sold out. The first print run is sold out in stores, and it looks like we're going on to print run number 2 in just a couple of months' time, so that's great news. So, what is Own Your Industry? How to Position Yourself as an Expert? Well, it comes from this idea. Have you ever had the experience where you received a phone call from, say, a big company that you'd never marketed to, or even a large multinational, and you heard that wonderful phrase, "Someone told us you're the person to talk to"? Well, for me, the genesis of writing this book was asking the question, how does that happen? And perhaps more importantly, how do we make that happen over and over again by design? How do you become so known, so iconic, that whenever anyone is thinking about your industry, your name springs to mind? And in fact, when the key players are spending money into your industry, you are the only logical choice. The book is divided into 50 ways to position yourself as an expert. The keynote talk that I do, I usually select the top 6 or 7 ways that are most relevant to that audience at the time. And often they're very simple things, like owning a framework. What is a framework? Well, a framework is your own unique way of packaging and presenting your ideas. So, for example, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Kiyosaki is a framework. Why is it powerful? Well, think about the sheer number of books that exist out there on the topic of wealth and wealth creation. Why did that one break away from the pack? I think part of the answer lies in the strength of the framework. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's become known. And he uses that framework throughout the series of books that he subsequently wrote, and now, of course, it's also a speech, a seminar, a DVD, a board game, etc., all based around that one strong framework. As speakers, we can learn a great deal from that. What's your framework? For example, if you speak on sales, do you build yourself as simply speaking on sales, or do you have a unique framework? An unusual angle that is specifically yours and that becomes well known. Off the top of my head, an example for that one might be something like how to sell in a recession, or anything that really makes your concept specific, unique, memorable, and interesting. I also talk about how top icons in various industries are not necessarily the most qualified individuals. Take someone like a Nigella Lawson or a Jeremy Clarkson, and they're some of my heroes. They're dealing with the same raw material that all of their competitors have to work with. In the case of Clarkson, it's the new cars that are released every single week. In the case of Nigella Lawson, it's food. Her competitors have exactly the same raw material. So what else are they bringing to the mix? If we accept that someone like a Nigella is not the most qualified chef on earth, and perhaps not even in the top 10, we have to ask ourselves, why is she out-earning the top 10 combined? And the answer is not qualification. It's not even technical proficiency. That's a given. The answer is something interesting. Real experts exist at the intersection of knowledge, personality, and publicity. Get those 3 working together and you have something with the seeds of becoming iconic on your hands. So those are just some of the ideas that we look at in the book. They apply to business owners, they apply to brands, and I'm happy to say they apply directly to speakers. Of course, my frame of reference in the world of business when writing the book was the world of speaking, and how I see certain names become iconic and what they're doing differently. Sometimes it's a little bit counterintuitive. In fact, sometimes we have to untrain ourselves in the ways that we've learnt. It's amazing how often the thinking about work and wealth that gets handed down to us from one generation to the next started off with the Industrial Revolution. We were taught ideas like go and get a job, work a set number of hours, and the nature of the work was such that you had to be a functional cog that fit into a system and did its work perfectly. Don't have an opinion, don't make waves, don't try to rise to the top, don't have a voice. And the world has changed 180 degrees. The people who are now at the top of any industry are not functional cogs. They have strong viewpoints, they are thought leaders, and they express themselves. One of the points that I make is that we need to be seen in all the right forums as often as possible, whether that means speaking in public as we do, or writing articles for industry publications, or getting yourself interviewed in the media. And I give some suggestions for how to go about doing that by offering value or entertainment to the readers or listeners. So that's a very broad overview of what the book is. And the whole idea is to say, go beyond the mere excellence that you exhibit at what you do. Consider the PR side and build your career as well. The more you do it, the more you create tribes of believing followers. The more you become the name at the end of the sentence, you know who you should talk to about that. Ultimately, the goal is to become iconic in your industry. There should be no other choice but you. The book is available in most bookstores around South Africa, in C&As and exclusive books, and a quick little tip, it costs R196 in C&A and R206 in exclusive books. So you can get it cheap at C&A unless you want the Fanatics points. Little insider trading there for you. It is also available on Amazon and Kalahari.net as a download as an ebook, and that makes it available all around the world, which is an absolute joy and pleasure. Just in terms of some of the inside track for us as speakers, I've worked with a couple of publishers now. The first group was based in Cape Town and did absolutely nothing in terms of marketing my first book. That was 50 Ways to Become a Better Speaker. I've since regained the rights to that one and I now self-publish it. But I must say that the guys at Penguin have been phenomenal. They've organised media interviews, they've sent me out to speak at things like Chambers of Commerce and business breakfasts, and they've been really involved in selling the books. We as speakers have an advantage when we approach a publisher. The first thing they want to know is, how will you get involved in helping to sell the book? So when that partnership happens, it's a beautiful thing, and I must say it's been an absolute joy and pleasure working with them. A little value add and an extra. If you get a chance, jump onto www.ownyourindustry.net. There's only one thing on that site, and that is a series of questions for you to answer. Once you've answered the questions, it will tell you where you currently rank in your industry, whatever that might be, in the continuum between amateur and expert. Not only that, but once it's spat out a ranking for you, it also gives you some ideas about what you should be thinking about next. That's ownyourindustry.net. My own website is www.douglaskruger.co.za, and that has articles, videos and so on, and if you're on Twitter, @Douglas Kruger. I look forward to chatting with you further.